We are live. Okay.
Yes, we are live.
Welcome the world outside of our outside of our screens.
Yes, and we have a couple people to start in the room, and everybody, Becky will be here in just a minute, but I would like to introduce Mr. Damian Dawes. That is how you pronounce your last name, right?
It is Dawes. Yes, indeed. Yes,
Okay, all
absolutely.
right.
Right.
I wanted to make sure.
He's that moment next to the road.
Okay, but and Mr. Dawes is the author of the. Tell me if I pronounce this correctly as well. I should have asked before we started, but the Abarath Trilogy.
You're absolutely spot on. Abarath Trilogy. Yes.
Okay, all right. They consist of Hunted, Hunger, and Origins, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and I have read the first two. The first two of the trilogy. Has Origins been released yet?
It has. Yes, I wrote all three books over the course of 2 years with a view to putting them out very quickly, one after the other. So it actually got released a few weeks ago. So all three books are actually available right now.
Oh, great. I was hoping to get Origins read before the release date, but it didn't happen. It's just been such a busy time.
I'm sure.
Yeah, this event has kept us very busy.
Oh, we have a new viewer.
Yeah. But and hello everyone in the chat and whoever is new. But all right, these books are horror, definitely. They are action packed, especially Hunger. I
Right.
read that book, and that book is action packed, very exciting.
Great.
And the first one is too, although I would call it, yes, there's Hunger. There's the second.
Yeah, I've got them all here. Yeah.
And we really had a good time. Both of us had a good time with Hunted. Becky's read Hunted. I've read Hunger. And this, of course, this being horror mayhem, they're going to be horror novels, and they border on extreme horror, which I really enjoyed about them.
Yeah, they certainly do. Mindy, hello. Thank you for joining us. They definitely do, so much so. Now, I mean, you know, Scott, that I am a new author, a new writer, and these are the first books that I've written over the long time. Prior to that, I hadn't written anything. So I am very, very much learning the craft of writing, and I'm also learning how to publish and market a book, because I am an indie author, completely self-published at every single level. So it's Sally. I say hi to Sally because she is my wife, and if I don't say hi to Sally, I will get, yeah, you'll see something fly across the screen in front of me.
No one wants to be sleeping in the doghouse in Spain.
No, it's hot out there, so no, definitely not. But yeah, I'm a completely self-published author, and these books are my first venture into seeing whether or not I could actually write, whether or not I had the enough ability to put some words onto paper. And then over time, a lot of hard work and a lot of being receptive to learning the craft of writing, could I fine tune them enough to actually put them up for sale and have people pay their hard earned money to read what I've written. So yeah, it's great that you've read them, and great that the first two, and it's great that you've enjoyed them. That's it warms my heart, and yeah, it gives me a huge confidence boost to carry on. Nikki, hi, Nikki. Hello.
Yeah, Nikki is a great author in her own right.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, but I read, but like I told you earlier, I read your books before I read any other authors that were interviewing this month. Okay. I read yours first. I got a review copy of Hunted.
Yeah,
and just really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. It is very unique. It is, and I think that has something to do with having someone who writes horror who has never written it before. That didn't at all hurt the story. It didn't hurt the writing. It didn't hurt anything. It just made it unique, and I think that's one of the main reasons I enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to hear. And we were talking a little bit before about the process, but how I approached it as someone who's and so I had, and I wanted as well to say to everyone who's listening and joining us is I've broken I've lived in sin, and my sin has been over the years that I've not been a reader. The very first books that I read, and I have no idea how I managed to get them into my bedroom as a 12, 13-year-old boy, but it was James Herbert's trilogy, the Rats trilogy. So Rats, Lair. Now, I read those books when I was, very young, and too young, I would say, because they are also graphic. And then there's this huge void when I didn't read. My life took me very, very different paths, and I only had just started reading, trying to learn how to write through reading other books and reading about other authors. I did probably the best thing I could possibly ever do, and that was buy Stephen King's book on writing, which is, it's become my Bible. And that is a book which literally details about the craft of writing. I've got it somewhere in my library, but it's something that, I had read before I wrote the first line of the Abarath Trilogy. But talking about the newness and sort of how I approached writing action horror, I'd read a couple of Lee Child books before, and the Jack Reacher series, and for me they were great. They were fast paced. They were action. They weren't horror, but I immediately thought that nailed how to write some great stories that grip you and pull you through. So that's I tried to emulate it, and it's like copy his style.
Let me turn to okay, there we go.
So I'm very, very sorry, but the lawnmower guy decided to show up right now. So whenever he passes by the window,
okay. Is your wee dog a guard dog? You can't kind of open the door and let her slip out. And
he likes to pretend he is.
Okay. Is he a French bulldog? Is that right? I didn't quite.
He's a Boston Terrier.
Boston Terrier. There we go.
They look very, very close, but yeah, he's a Boston Terrier. He's asleep right now. He sleeps. All he does is sleep.
Yeah.
Hi. That's okay.
But Mindy Hunted is very, very good. I reviewed it on our channel right after I read it, 3 to 4 days after I read it. And Mindy was the first one to say, I need to read that. So Mindy's a great booktuber as well. So
right, okay, that's fantastic. Well, happy reading. It's I don't know, can I do, I am going to do this. I might break some rules here, but you're going to forgive me because I'm new, and say, hey, it's only 99 cents on Amazon. I mean, why did I write? What was my motive? What was I trying to do? I'm a creative person by nature, and I wanted to share what was in my head, and therefore I thought, right, I write Hunted. So there we go, Hunted. I write this book first. It led me on to write The Hunger. It led me on to write Origins, and then I thought I just want as many people as possible to read it. and I've had it on free as much as I possibly can, to just try to expose myself to the audience readers that are out there. So yeah, it's available right now. Yeah.
Was there something specific that spurred you on? Did somebody look at you and say, you need to write a story or anything like that? Or is it just,
yeah, I so I haven't been a great reader all my life, but I have loved movies. So I've gone to the cinema as often as I can. And I know you guys are going to be starting a new channel, I think, about including horror movies in it. Well, I've been a great horror movie fan, but I have been disappointed with the latest releases that are coming out. And maybe I'm a bit old-fashioned, but I just maybe I'm reminiscing about the movies that I saw in the past. But I felt that I just wanted to see on the big screen a great creature feature, something that absolutely gripped me, and literally my favorite film, besides Sideways, Scott, the film that you spoke about earlier, but one of my favorite films, directed by Ridley Scott. It's just you have this huge expanse of space, yet the film is so claustrophobic. It's so claustrophobic. And when I kept watching this film and asking myself, or saying to myself, I'd like to write something like that. I'd like to write about a creature in a vast space, coming up against a group of very colourful individuals that each have their own personalities and their traits and their ways of dealing with it. And from that desire, I decided to write Hunted, and Hunted got those elements. So I've gone and set it in the Arctic Circle. So you have this huge expanse. I've set it on board a really old, rusty Russian icebreaker. So you have so even though you can go on deck and you can see this wonderful landscape around you. Yes, setting of a ship, you can't go wrong, Mindy. It's aided by visions. Hello there. And then you have this great contrast with people descending into the bowels of the ship, and the more things are wrong on the ship, the more claustrophobic it gets. And then when you throw in a cast of characters, some of whom you want to live, some of whom you're very happy to see the end of, then it adds more and more tension and more layers. And we haven't even introduced the creature. So, it just had Alien for me was the template. Alien was the template. Incredible film, incredible book as well. Incredible. I mean, faultless for me, absolutely faultless. And I want very, very humbly to try and emulate that in some way.
Well, one of the most effective things about Hunted is the fact that the entire setting is untrustworthy. It's unstable. Every last aspect of it, including the world, because they're on an ocean that's rapidly freezing solid.
Totally.
And
yes.
They're on a ship that is rapidly falling apart.
yeah. I've gone to the extremes.
And the crew is rapidly losing their minds.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. For those of you who haven't read it, the book Hunted, it takes place in the Arctic Circle on board an icebreaker. It's about a woman named Kat who has she's a diver, but she has a very, very bad past diving, which I'll let you read because it messed me up. Because of a very unreliable sea captain, they end up taking a detour when they should not be taking a detour, as the world is rapidly freezing. And they come
Don't go
across.
too much further.
I'm not going too much further, but they come across something.
Please, far
They
away.
come across something that they did not expect to come across. It is a creature feature, and it is unbelievably scary.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. The creature. I can definitely see it in my mind, and it is incredibly disturbing. It is a very disturbing creature.
But the book played on a couple of my biggest fears. One of which is dark, murky water.
Yeah.
And that features a lot. And there's one part at the very beginning of the book when you talked about how she's looking down and nothing below her but the void. And I'm like, yep, that's the problem.
Yeah, I take it. I take it you're not deep sea swimmers. I take it you're not.
I won't step foot into the ocean ever again. I have once. I have swam in the ocean, and I don't think I will ever do it again.
It's not worth it. I'm kind of a contradiction in terms in that I can't handle lakes. I will not swim in lakes because of the dark, murky water. But I love oceans, but I won't go deeper than my neck.
Okay, I mean, there are some things. I think, again, I'm speaking purely as a novice here, so only my thoughts. I could be totally wrong, but for me, there is something about the depth of the sea, and we still haven't fully discovered it. You know, there's so many unknown things there. So what lurks there, we don't know. The people who read Hunted will know the Abarath is down there, so that's one thing. And the creature, Scott, thank you for saying that about the creature, because I think any writer who decides that they're going to write about a creature, and how many creatures are there in horror fiction? How many creatures have been created? So to come up with something that's new and original is a challenge. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My approach. Can I jump in and say something to Nikki? Is that okay? Nikki, hi. You've asked about some scenes or lines that creeped me out. Most of the book, I went to a very dark place through most of the book, and that's probably because there were very, very few highlights in the book. You know, even when the crew went outside of the ship, it was fog. It was desolate. When they went inside, it was just dank and smelt of diesel. So yeah, there was plenty of scenes that really, really creeped me out. And my remedy for that was to get myself out, have a quick break, have a cup of coffee, and shake myself out and go and see the Spanish countryside for it. I kind of went to a dark place, I think. I don't know if that is that common to go to such a dark place, but I went to quite a dark place writing this book. Kind of exhausting. And the creature had a lot to do with that. No real spoilers, but the Abarath. Ah, okay, that's good. Thank you. That's good to hear, Nikki. The creature. I think I can talk about it without spoiling it, because it does feature quite early on in the whole trilogy. So the trilogy compiled is nearly 1,000 pages. So that's it's a heck of a read. Each novel is about 350 pages or so.
Mm-hmm.
And taking back the whole trilogy, the creature first appears, really within the sort of first 10th of that trilogy. And the creature I wanted to. So what's the scariest thing I can think of? Either it's a complete unknown that you simply can't see and don't know what's out there, so your imagination is going to paint the creature for the reader. The reader is going to create their own creature, which you see in many books. For me, I wanted to have it almost a little bit relatable, so I have made it a humanoid form.
Right.
It's the best way of describing it, again, without too many spoilers. You have this overly muscled man, 6 foot, 7 foot, or, you know, and just it's so powerful that there really is on board an icebreaker that doesn't have military weapons there, doesn't have weapons to hand, is going to be a formidable foe. The making it original was the challenge. And for me, just something came to my mind, and I don't know if this came off the back of watching films, but I was visualizing it, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be great when the Abarath came into it, so sunlight, or into maybe the flickering strobes of the icebreaker, that its skin and outer layers of flesh became transparent. And that just added this level of gore into it, that as the crew members and also then as the readers literally see the consumption of the people who are being killed. So they are seeing blood and guts and bits of shaggy beard, Scott, going down the esophagus of the creature, being churned in its stomach, and dare I say, excreted out of its rectum. You know, that is something you can, you know, I'd not come across a creature like that. I'd not come across a creature where you actually see it, the whole full process, not just of how it kills something, but how it digests something. And I could be wrong because I'm not well read, as you know. But for me, I'd not come across that before. I don't know. So that's it.
I cannot remember anything like that. Can you? Like ever read anything like that?
Nikki, you have no idea.
but see, in the wrong hands, something like that could just be gross and nothing else. In the right hands, like this book definitely is.
It's effective.
It's very effective, and it's very scary. And while it is a gross out, it's not cheap at all.
Okay, that's nice.
There are lots of cheap gross out books, and this just is not one of those. Not at all. It earns every bit.
That's great. I mean, thank you so much. That's music. It was not just writing, but publishing the book myself. What I learned from the reviews, and I've been thankful and very happy that the reviews have been really great about the book. But when people have not liked the book, they have honed in on two things. One is that there is a little bit of animal suffering in Hunted in the first book. And the second thing is that some of the characters are, they say, extremely vile. So they are kind of grossed out by that. And why that's relevant for me is it forced my hand a bit. And I researched whether or not I should actually put a content warning onto the bottom of my blurb to let the readers know that they are going to be reading something that is, or some people have classed as extreme horror. I don't know if that's whether Nikki knows or Mindy yourselves, whether that's a good thing, whether that's something that readers want to have content warnings added to their blurbs.
The fact that you're a horror author, I think, makes it less necessary.
Less necessary, okay.
If you were a romance author, yes. But yeah, because you're a horror author, I don't think it's as important. Some people actually might find it kind of off-putting.
Okay,
off-putting to see it. Yeah, I have seen some pretty extreme opinions about content warnings from one of the horror publishers.
Okay, yes,
and it was someone who said that putting content warnings on books is akin to Nazi Germany.
Okay.
Which I think is the most ridiculous statement in the world.
What?
That is one of the dumbest things I had heard up to that point about novels. But I don't think it's going to turn anyone off. I really don't. I mean, if that's something you would like to do, and it probably would cut down on those people saying, maybe this was not for me. I mean, it definitely could.
Yeah. I mean, if nothing else, you could put a short foreword at the very beginning of your book. By the way, yes, this and this. If you don't like it, don't read it.
Okay, that's short and sweet. I also why I'm writing is and the books I'm trying to entertain. You know, I'm trying to get people to have an enjoyable experience. So the last thing I want is someone to pick up one of my books and be really grossed out by it, even if I've as you said skillfully detailed those moments of those depictions of death. Yeah, I'd hate to have someone kind of like really like grimace and go, oh my God, this is stomach churning. So yeah, that's why I've gone with the content warning, but I'll be very open. Nikki's saying here, trying to learn the craft every moment I get. Yeah, I kept my warning vague, so not to spoil, but I also didn't want to blindside everyone. Absolutely. Okay, Nikki, I'm reading you loud and clear.
Yeah, the way Nikki put her content warning in her book was interesting, because it was entertaining to read the content warning. It was written in kind of a funny manner, and so yeah.
It helps that Nikki's a funny girl.
Yeah.
Content warning: graphic, sex, violence, ellipses, use, laugh out loud. Okay. Okay.
Cool. So talking about the extreme nature of some of your scenes, did you find yourself balking at some of the descriptions, just sitting down at your computer and asking yourself, should I be writing this, or did you just go all out?
Okay, so I had some reservations about detailing it so much, because I had read, and I mean, obviously I use Stephen King's On Writing book as my Bible, but I also did a huge amount of just on the internet looking at how other authors write and what they do and what they don't do. And one thing that seemed to be recurring was that a lot of horror authors leave the death scenes or the real graphic scenes to the imagination of the reader.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I was like, okay, I could do that, but I have this burning desire not to do that. I want to kind of share what's in my head. And I don't know whether or not I was led more by the fact that I love watching films. So I was trying to paint a very vivid picture for the reader, in some of it in fine detail. So someone may be killed, and that may last 6 pages, which is a lot. And one of my very, very first reviews, which was a really good review, did say, wow, this guy leaves nothing to the imagination. You know, you literally, you are reading and seeing it at the same time. And that was a risk, I suppose, because it maybe is going a little bit away from the norm, or the norm that I believed was the norm, and how a horror writer should be, leaving it to the reader's imagination. But, you know, these are action, these are fast paced, these are in your face, no holds barred books, you know, commercial. You know, they are, for me, they're commercial fiction. And I just really wanted to lay it out all on the page and hope that I did a good job. I did, yeah.
So, tacking on to what Nikki said here, by a metric ton of research, your book had a lot of information provided, okay. And not just about what they were doing on the ice in the icebreaker, but about the human condition, about there's some sociopathy going on, there was some PTSD going on.
Yeah.
What kind of research did you have to do to get this book on paper?
Okay, well, there's just on those topics and some other topics. So there are a number of things I had to look at. First of all, it's set in the Cold War. So I'm 55. I experienced some of that as a child. I mean, I remember watching some adverts on the TV saying, you know, in the case of nuclear explosion, this is what you do, move away from the windows. So I had to do a fair bit of research on the Cold War to start with, and to understand the dynamics of the two opposing forces, and how they were really vying for the Arctic Circle. That was a contested area, even though it wouldn't look it. Most of what was happening in the Cold War was happening undersea, under the surface of the ocean. So I did a lot of research for that. As far as the characters and the psychological, you know, I think although I'm rabbiting away like a loony here, I do really just listen and observe people around me. So I just love people watching. I love asking questions of people. And, you know, my family has been through trauma like everyone else's family. My friends have been through trauma, and just listening to them sincerely and trying to empathize as best that I can is probably the best research that I've ever had. Just the world around me is it's there. It's there if you look quietly and with sincerity. So I'm not saying I suffer from PTSD, but you know, there are certain things that, yeah, I have had first-hand experience of. As far as actual research goes, no, to be quite honest, I didn't dive into medical journals. I didn't dive into psychology journals. I didn't go and call friends who I know who are in that profession, because I don't know any. So that really is the honest truth. What I have been is I've been a very critical writer. So once I've written something down, if I've had an idea, I won't sit on it. I will say, was that accurate? Is that accurate? And I've been very lucky to have a couple of people support me through the process of writing this trilogy, who were quite happy to tell me when, hey, that's not quite how a woman might think under these conditions. That's not quite how someone who's under a certain level of stress, it doesn't feel right. So a lot of listening and maybe questioning. And as Stephen King said, you know, be prepared to kind of get rid of your babies. Be prepared to just slash through your work. So if anything didn't feel right off the back of people telling you, hey, you're off the mark on Kat's. Katrina Robbins is the lead character. You're off the mark on this. This doesn't suit her character. This isn't what she would do. It went. It just went. I wasn't proud. I was like, it goes, right, I rewrite it. And boy, oh boy, did this trilogy have a lot of rewrites. An awful lot of rewrites. It really did. My God. more than I dare admit.
Kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings. There we go. Nikki's Nikki. You know this. On writing off word for word. Kill your darlings. Absolutely. It's the, and I think as well. I mean, talking about writing style, and talking about originally what I said about Lee Child. You know, he does write some really short sentences, some really clipped sentences, and that's kind of a good starting point. So when I've done my second draft, and I start to look at my sentences and think about, well, I want pace in here, because I in many ways emulated Lee Child's style. There wasn't a lot of having to cut those sentences down and reduce them to get them tighter. So I think I was okay on that, but I definitely needed help on making sure the characters were real, because I don't know if you agree. I know reading your review that you posted on Goodreads and on Amazon. You commented about the the vileness of some of the creatures that, hey, whoa, there's some pretty nasty characters here. So when I was writing those, I wanted them to be colorful. I wanted them to be extreme, but not caricatures, but not unrealistic. So yeah, it took to go back, Becky, to your original question. Research, vital. I should always do more. Most of it came through probably 53 years of listening and observing the world around me, and then deciding at the age of 52, 53 to write a book. And that was my starting point. So I came from a really weak starting point in many respects, and equally from a fresh starting point, that I was just grabbing all this information through living on this great planet and trying to pull it into make some form of decent story, decent novel with decent characters that you could empathize with.
Well,
I ran, don't I? I do.
It's great. It's
Bring it.
great.
I love it. Being a new author, I have a way to, what are your writing habits? Did you outline your story from beginning to end and stick to it strictly, or did your characters take off with you?
Okay.
Or
well, I knew the basic premise. So the basic premise was, what if a group of people become stranded here in the Arctic Circle? What if they become stranded, and then what if they're also being hunted? So I had this premise. And in many ways, following the plot of Alien, the film Alien, I kind of had this in the back of my mind. But my process was, that's the premise. I'll plot only up to a certain point and be super flexible in my plot. So what I mean by that is, even though I'd loosely had a plot, I was quite prepared to veer dramatically away from it and leave that plot be if the characters dictated that it goes in a different direction. As you pointed out, my characters, especially the lead character, Katrina Robbins, she is fragile. I mean, she's spiky. She's feisty. She's fragile. I think if I rightly remember, it might be in Hunger, the second book, I described her as a hand grenade wrapped in barbed wire. So she could explode at any second, but equally she's still razor sharp on the outside because of her experiences. So I was really wanting to follow her path and let her kind of resolve this real issue. And the issue was, how do we survive when some horrendous beast is hunting us? We can't go anywhere. We can only go down, and down is to our death as well. We can only go into the bowels of the Vlad Chimera, the Russian icebreaker, and that's a contained area. So how do we get out of that? The interesting thing that happened, and I will not spoil this, but some of the more vile characters that you want to actually maybe not survive till the end are some of the people who come up with the ideas that might lead to the salvation of the rest of the crew. So that was completely unseen by me. I had no idea that things were going to play out that way.
Even when those ideas are horribly upsetting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure people read the book that there's some characters who that's like, die now and die badly. But some people just stuck around. And ultimately they came up with a brainstorm. The least likely person came up with a brainstorm to help with the predicament. And that was not plotted at all. It just happened. It was a bit of a eureka moment. And yeah, I think it worked. The process, once I'd and the actual writing process itself, trying to talk a wee tad about the actual sort of my routine of writing and how the book developed from concept right through to publication. I mean, I would write in the morning, around about 6 hours, and I literally just hammered out the first draft as quickly as I could. So it's literally like, go with the flow. What the characters want to happen, you just jot it down. Don't go too heavy on the actual craft of writing. Get down the ideas and then review it all. And that's kind of what I did. And then from then on in, it was a case of questioning whether the characters were acting out of sync with reality, questioning whether or not there was enough horror in the book as well. I had to kind of read it through and go, is this dark enough? Is this scary enough? Is this gripping enough? All the things that I believe horror readers want to read. I had to, and that happened in the other following drafts, where I was trying to layer in extra elements and themes to darken the mood, the tone, the desperation. And that happened over not one draft, but maybe a number of different drafts before I decided, hey, I have a book here that I can work with.
Okay, yeah, that was some of the situations that the characters were put in. I could tell were really well thought out, and I know the scene that a lot of people were probably upset about in Hunted was, I won't spoil anything, but the polar bear scene.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And I can see why that would upset some people, but at the same time, that's horror. You know, that's not pulling any punches. It works. It works very well. And horror needs to get strong emotions from people. That is one of the things that, in my opinion, good horror does. It evokes strong emotions, and that scene did that. And I knew it would. It would probably do that for a lot of people, even more than it did me. It made Becky a little emotional and things like that. But that's what the scene. That's what the scene is for.
Absolutely. I mean, it fulfills a number of purposes, both in the plot, but also, yes, in the emotions there. And I tried to. I mean, if people are moved by that scene, the person who's moved the most by that scene is the lead protagonist, is Katrina Robbins. Yeah. She's the one who of all the people is absolutely devastated that the potential route to their salvation lies within another animal suffering. Mm-hmm. So, when I came up with the idea, it felt perfect. It only further enhanced Katrina Robbins, the lead character's personality. It only gave her more reason to beat the Abarath, to beat this beast, and to see it through. Ironic. I mean, something is really ironic that people found this so disturbing, because I've spent I was a ballet dancer for my early career, and for 20 years I worked in animal rescue. So I was a dog handler and then a dog trainer, and I worked in some of the world's biggest animal rescue centers, rescuing animals. So it was quite ironic that the couple of bad reviews that I got focused in on that. And I thought, oh, okay, this is, I don't know, it's because I'm not, my God, animal cruelty. It's the last thing on my mind. It's the opposite of what I've been doing for most of my life. But essential, and why? I mean, is there anything taboo as far as horror goes? I mean, yes, of course, there's going to be some things that are taboo, but that surely not. And in my reading of books in preparation to write, I read a book by Nick Cutter called The Deep. And that is, again, it has huge segments. I mean, my wife, Sally, couldn't finish it. She couldn't finish that book. It has huge segments of, there are no boundaries. Nikki, thank you. That's good to hear. I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
That is actually the book I was going to bring up, was The Deep by Nick Cutter. Yes.
I would bet your wife had some of the same issues I did with that book.
With The Deep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, relentless is a good word. Relentless. I did get through it, and I mean, did I enjoy it? It didn't disturb me. But I really appreciate it from the reviews that are. Sally says she hated it. Sally, I know you hated The Deep. You handed it to me to read.
It was the dog, wasn't it, Sally? For me, it was the dog.
Yeah, not good. I got through the book, and in many ways, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the book, and it was really, really important book for me to read because it was so closely aligned with what I was, in the process of writing as well. So I really wanted to see how another author tackled a confined space in the middle of the ocean. That was important stuff for me to absorb. I liked it. But talking about the reviews and what people like and don't like, I've learned a couple of things as a completely new author. One is I don't have a particularly thick skin, and reviews affect me.
Okay.
And I think if someone's going to say, hey, you're a new author, you've been writing for a couple of years, you've just launched these books this year, should I be a writer? I say, do you have a thick skin? Okay, you have a thick skin. If you don't read your reviews, just be a writer. And I think what I learned as well about reading the reviews, and I asked for reviews in the back of the book. I asked, give me a review, whether you liked the book or didn't like the book. If you critique the book, I'll learn from it. And one of the takeaways for me was that, my God, everybody is different on their likes and their dislikes. You will never, ever write a book that everyone in the world is going to like. No. And for sure, you're going to be offending some people. My lesson of that was, okay, make sure your blurb is accurate. Make sure the reader, at least when they're going to go knows what they're going to get as best as they can. But yeah, I had a few low moments when I had some bad reviews and some joyous ones. I drank a lot of red wine when a bad review came in, although there weren't many. I got through a bottle. And yeah, the sun was only shining when I read your review, Scott. Great, thank you very much, and many others that have come in. Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad they've mostly been very positive. Really positive. Yeah. It is a very good book.
Absolutely.
Both of them are very good, and The Hunger will be next. I've read it, but I have not written a review yet. I have to get on that.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's fine. I mean, Hunger is obviously no spoilers whatsoever here. Some of the characters from Hunted, from book 1, do manage to make it through to book 2, so there is continuity there. I did, and it's interesting that you say, Scott, that there's maybe even a little bit more action in it. Bear in mind, it is on a fictitious island in the Arctic Circle, Ostenhearth. So it's a fictitious island, and therefore it's not so claustrophobic. And in many ways, that does follow a little bit like the series, the Alien series, where on the second Aliens, Ripley now is going to the planet. So it has followed that a little bit. So that's Hunger, is a little bit more actiony based. And then when we move on to Origins, which I believe neither of you have read Origins yet.
Yeah.
Origins is completely different. So I was like, okay, I've committed to write a trilogy here. There has to be some resolution. I have to round this story off. I have to give some resolution to the readers. But I'd already written 700 pages of action-packed Arctic Circle, Cold War horror. So what do? Do I deliver to the readers another book in a similar vein? So I thought, I have to, and again, in talking about the plot and the process, I hadn't really worked out the final book. I thought I have to do something different here. So I've taken, as you can tell by the cover here, the cover, Origins goes back 500 years. So it goes back to the Tudor times, and it features a missionary ship called the Catherine Grace that heads across the Atlantic and ends up being swept in bad seas far further north than it should do. So you're back again in the Arctic Circle, but you're 500 years earlier. And with that brings a whole new set of characters. But there is a core underlying theme, which is the Abarath, and more than that, which I won't spoil, but one of the characters from the very first book, their ancestors are in the final Origins, and they are pivotal. They are key to the whole trilogy. So it's hopefully it will tie up the loose ends, and hopefully, guys, when you read it, you will enjoy it as much as you have the first book. It's a little bit more. I talk about sort of fast-paced and action, and I don't know whether I was influenced by the fact that it was set in Tudor. It starts off in Tudor England. That it's a little bit more classically written. The sentences are a little bit more poetic. I don't know whether I was influenced by that time and reading sort of historical fiction that I lent a little bit away from this sort of Lee Childy, snappy, in your face to a little bit more romantic horror in some ways. And indeed, people have commented that the descriptions and how the creature act in is in many ways it's poetic how I've written it. So it has changed as I suppose my writing has evolved and been led, dare I say it, the characters, the plot, the whole premise has led and maybe sculpted and changed the way I write. If that can be believed, I think that's the case. I suppose you'll be the judge of that when you read the book.
Well, there was definitely a slight shift in style between even Hunted and Hunger.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. That you could there was a marked difference between the writing style of the two books.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Even though the action was different because it was set in a larger area. Number one.
Yes.
Oh, you did? Yeah, it's finally starting to thunder.
Oh, okay. Storms have arrived. Appropriate.
Yeah, we love rain. We love rain, and we don't get enough of it. But at the same time, I don't know. It's hard to explain. The setting wasn't the only difference. The characters, the characters, number one, were most of the characters were more, what's the word I'm looking for? Moral. And
yes.
In the second book, as they were on, because these people were not stuck on a ship for years at a time.
Yes.
And so thinking. Yeah, and so it makes perfect sense that these characters would be different. They're not as claustrophobic, even though they are on an island. I cannot remember his name, but the Scottish man in the book was a great character. I really enjoyed his character.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I really get where you're coming from there, and it's true. And going back to Hunted. Yes, I mean the crew had worked on board this horrible, rusting icebreaker that was their job, and that surely got to affect their personality, how they view the world. The name of the character is they are the They are the Scotts, Mrs. Scott, who you're talking about, and they had come from there. He was Glaswegian, and he had come from, he'd emigrated further and further and further north to find more and more and more openness and freedom from the trials and tribulations of life in the city of Glasgow. So yeah, it's I'm glad you liked him and found the style evolving. Yeah, Nikki, yeah. I'm glad you say your mantra is write the F what you want. That's that's a good mantra. I'm learning a lot reading what you've got to say.
But yes, I did see an evolution in styles, and you will too. I think when you it's not that it's like days and days different. It's not that much different, but there's a definite difference in that. In this book, I read the entire book with a breath stuck right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was just as relentless, if not more relentless, even though the island was bigger.
Yeah.
And I just had a great time with it. I mean, I really had a great time with Hunger. I had a great time with both books, but especially Hunger. I think I would rate it just slightly higher. Even though I love both.
Well, two very different tools were used for the different books. The first book is all about claustrophobia. It's all about being, even though you're in this really big open area, it's all about being really enclosed in. In the second book, from what I'm hearing, the second book is all about the anxiety of it.
Well, the anxiety, and there are some claustrophobic scenes for sure in the second book as well.
And obviously, still underpinning, you have the Abarath. So you have this beast that is equally relentless. And if you're looking for the star of the show, that's the star of the show. And that is that's the thread again that runs through all of these. And hopefully, I believe I've interspersed enough of the creature in and evolved the creature. I mean, it really gets evolved in Origins. You really understand more about what drives it. Not just the fact that it's a predator, not just the fact that it has very sort of carnal instincts. There's more behind it. So that was a constant thread. I think again, I'm really speaking as a novice here, but because I've only just started writing, I would be really surprised if my style of writing stayed where it was. I really think it's going to change. It might change dramatically. I'm tentatively, I've sort of have penned a new book, and this one is completely different. It's going to be a psychological horror. I'm going to approach it very, very slowly because it's so different, and it might require more research, more like say actual research. It's certainly going to require that I read more horror books of a similar ilk. And I can't see the style that I've employed in the Abarath Trilogy really working in this book. So it may well be that my style will have to, through necessity, morph into something that suits a psychological horror more than an action-packed sort of gore fest. Even though I'd like to think, and I believe that there's depth in the Abarath Trilogy.
There it is. Yeah.
I think that my style will change. I think the style will change and hopefully improve as well.
Okay. Are you a fan of the Italian giallo films? Have you seen any of those?
No, absolutely. I really don't. I don't know them. I don't know them at all. So I'm all ears.
Okay. They are a psychological type of horror film that came out mostly in the 70s and the 80s.
Okay. Yes.
And I mean, they have a mystery at the center. but they are
Okay.
very, but they are horrific in the way that they're delivered. Like the Dario Argento has done a few. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is a great one.
Yeah.
All the Colors of the Dark. These really, really strange movies, but they're
Okay.
all
Yeah.
about atmosphere. They're all about atmosphere. And
Okay. Yes.
I would. I mean, if you do want to write psychological horror, I think that's a great place to start if you like the Italian style.
Okay.
So,
I'm open. Like I say, I am a sponge at the moment, and yeah, I will soak up as much as I can. I've got to make up for lost time. So
well, the Giallo movies they're strange
yeah.
offenders.
I
So
was sorry, Becky.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to. I mean, I know you're interviewing me, but I wanted to. I'm going to pounce. I'm going to be like the Abarath and pounce on you guys and say, you know, you're reviewing. You're such learned readers. You've read so much. You've reviewed a huge amount from what I can glean. If you're going to advise a writer like myself, a new writer, about what's the ingredients for a great all-round horror book in any sort of subgenre of horror, as learned readers, what would you, Becky, what would you, Scott, say? Hey, this is the ingredients. Put these ingredients into the book, and you're gonna tick all the boxes.
I know for me, it is 100% about atmosphere, and you have that in spades. That's one of the things I loved about Hunted. As a reader, I'm sitting just in my comfy living room reading my book, and I'm getting this horrible sense of claustrophobia because the character that I'm thinking about is in a huge rust bucket in the middle of an ocean, and but you managed to bring that whole atmosphere to life. And I actually had to put the book down at the very beginning. She's in the middle of the middle of the deepest ocean. I'm like, no, I can't do this.
This is like 15 pages in.
It's 15 pages into this book, and I'm like, no, I can't do it. But yeah, it's for me, it's all about atmosphere. If you can bring a setting to life, which you really can, if you can bring a setting to life, you've got your reader from the beginning.
That's fantastic. Can I just quickly ask, did you read Mexican Gothic? Because that was so renowned for having the atmosphere and the setting.
We have not read it yet.
It's on my 400-pound TBR.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to read it. I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah, we haven't gotten
because I've heard nothing but good about that.
But yeah, I'll go with what Becky says. A subgenre starts with atmosphere. You read Gothic horror like an Edgar Allan Poe story. You are obviously reading Gothic. You're obviously reading Gothic horror. There is no way to classify it. I mean, there are ways to classify it in other ways, but you cannot classify it without saying it's Gothic horror.
And Gothic horror is about 98% atmosphere and 2% setting.
Yeah, Gothic horror is Gothic horror is sort of like the Giallo we were just talking about, where you look at it, you look at one, and then you will never mistake anything else for Giallo. It has its own thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think all subgenres are mostly. Go ahead.
Shush you. Thank you. See, that's awful.
Nikki, you're testing the waters.
No, the waters have been tested enough.
But yes, atmosphere definitely number one. I mean, and one of the things I appreciate in horror is the ability to build suspense.
Okay.
That's something that is not always done. And it's actually interesting that you were able to do it with your creature, even though the creature being throughout the book. That's something. That's something a lot of people cannot build. Jaws. One of the reasons Jaws was so effective is because Jaws the shark was rarely shown.
Yeah, yeah.
You see the shark until the last, what, 15 minutes of the movie?
Yeah, you know, very well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But you actually were able to build suspense even with the creature being throughout the book. That usually can't be done.
Yeah, yeah.
It didn't take away from it. Like I said earlier, it was earned. So
yeah, there was this absolutely amazing scene. It was with Mrs. Meadows.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Looking out the door with her quarter of an eye.
Oh, wow, yes.
Really struck me that you kept coming back to her quarter of an eye. It really built the suspense.
That was I'm gonna really quickly change my headphones over. So I'm just gonna do a quick swap, if I could. I'm gonna look there we go. All good. All good for you guys? Can you see me still?
yes.
Oh, perfect. That's better. I just had to pop these on in preparation for this. In preparation for this, I went out and bought a camera and a speaker and a microphone. So I've been, I'm playing around with them at the moment. That scene, I mean, that was a pivotal scene because that scene was the first scene where the reader sees the Abarath, the creature, in its full glory, naked. You know, I think it was one of those times when I had a sentence and then I followed it by single words. I think I had a row of about single words to describe it. You know, naked, muscle bound, man, cannibal, beast. You know, it was like every single word that could sum up the Abarath in one. I threw it in at that moment in time. So it was that was a pivotal point in the whole trilogy, really. And again, it's one of those things that I could see in my mind. I just had to put it onto, type the letters and get it down. So yeah, I'm glad it worked, and I can kind of see Mrs. Meadows, the fragile, because she was very fragile character, very fragile.
Yes, she was.
Tempting herself to actually, squeeze a quarter of a pupil to see down the dark corridor of the Vlad Chimera, the icebreaker. So I'm glad you liked that scene. Glad that resonated.
Beth, you have to let us know what you think.
Yes, please do. Yeah, Beth bought all 3 books during this, and she says we have done a wonderful job picking our indie authors, and I have to agree.
Thank you very much, Beth. I'm honored. Anyone who reads my books, I'm eternally grateful, and I hope you enjoy them. And I'm just pleased that this time in my life I have some time to actually be creative and put something out there. So that's great. Thank you. Enjoy. Don't be too grossed out too much. Just a tad, and enjoy.
Well, I think anyone listening right now probably knows what they're getting into at this point. So
I've been forewarned. Nikki makes a good point talking about how it's entirely the characters for her, and I couldn't agree more. As long as you have a cast of really good characters, you're on the right track. You're pretty well golden. And boy, you have some great characters.
Yeah.
They were colorful. Some of them were awful.
It was really set up to, and you're going to have a group of people who have to work on the icebreaker. So you're going to have X number of people. One of the lead characters is Captain Belov, who is the Russian captain who has schemed his way through the Cold War. He's a schemer, but of all the people, I mean, he is theatrical. He will stomp across the bridge of the icebreaker with sort of theatrical aplomb. Yet he is one of the deepest characters probably in the whole trilogy. I mean, he is in a very, very short period Cat, you know, Cat looks into his eyes and sees a lonely man, a lonely man who's had a really, really, really tough life and has sought escape. And it's been a cover, it's been a front. His whole life is he's been covering up. And I mean, so I wanted to write this horror. I wanted it to be action packed, but I didn't want to skimp on. Each character didn't have a lot of white space, a lot of page to fill, but what there was precious. And I didn't want to write a shallow book. I wanted people to say this is horror, but horror can be deep. Horror can have great characters, as it does through thousands of great horror writers that have already done that. But I also wanted to do that. I also wanted to say, hey, that character, I'm going to think back about that character. And Captain Belov was one of them. Robinson is another kind of mysterious character who is in and out of the trilogy. But yeah, there's many. There's some really gross. I'd say gross, but Harris the mechanic. He's one where a few people have come back and go, whoa, you know, and I thought, okay, you know, he is the sort of guy who's going to have a sort of squashed boxer nose. He is going to have some drool as he's working, you know, greasing up the pistons of the engine. And he is the guy who's going to wipe his hand, and he is going to stick it in his dirty overalls, and he is going to stir his overalls in the pocket. He's that sort of guy, and that's the guy he is. And I've done a fair few jobs. One of the jobs I have done, I have worked in the blacksmiths before. And you know, I've seen those grubby, you know, guys who are the living at the base, you know, in many ways a base level. You know, it's only snot. You know, it's only snot. That's all it is. So he's like that, and he has a very, very simple philosophy on life, and that's enjoy the things he likes to enjoy at the expense of everybody else. You throw that character in with someone like Katrina Robbins, who has a huge amount of empathy and who wants to save the world in many ways for some of the mistakes that she's made early in her life. And you put her next to Harris, and you're going to have some frictions there that are, for an author, and this kind of just developed, for an author, that was kind of gold dust that I kind of just stumbled upon as these characters developed. I thought, yeah, hey, this is great. More of this, please, as I kept on writing it. So, yeah.
And that's actually one thing that your book really benefited from. You had a very small cast of characters, and every one of them was fleshed out. Even if we didn't get to see much of them, every one of them had a story, and every one of them had a personality. We didn't love all of their personalities, but
yeah,
that was kind of the point, I think, especially with Harris.
The characters themselves, I mean, my approach to it was a sort of what I considered to be sort of an average amount of people on board the ship, and I felt, well, as a writer, how, again, without skills to draw on, I thought, how do I include everyone? How do I give them enough page space in order to make them relevant and also not to confuse the reader as well? So there is a little bit of repetition. So you'll have an introduction to each character, but then you will also have all the characters come together, but a sentence devoted to each one, so that you're reminded of the character through what they're doing, their actions, and I try to layer on action in the sort of the first third of Hunted. So by the time they started dying, which is the meat of the book, literally the human meat of the book, by the time they started dying, you knew the consequences. You knew the consequences for the people they loved and they didn't love. You knew the consequences for the other crew members who survived or were surviving until maybe they met their fate. So yeah, it was an interesting thing. I loved having colorful characters. I'm going to try and do them again and keep it real as well. Try and keep it real. Yeah, not go into the ether. Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah, sure. So we're approaching. We've blown past the hour mark, but
Oh wow. Okay.
I have one more question that I like to ask.
And I have one as well.
I like to ask
Okay, cool.
all of our authors. What you said you've been a reader for the last 2 years.
Yes.
What's your favorite book?
Okay, well, I'm going to go way out. I'm going to go way outside of genre, and that's just me. That's just who I am. And every reader's different. A book that was just a massive commercial success, and many people disliked it because of it. But I love the book, and that's Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I love the book.
I've read that as well.
You know, yeah. Many people ripped it apart, but you know, reading for me is about enjoyment. It's about entertainment. And I really enjoyed that book so much that I read it time and time again. And when the film came out, I was straight at the cinema to see the film of it as well. Why? Two characters. So talk about characters again. So two characters. I could believe in them through the language that Gillian Flynn used. I thought she was with her portrayal, how she described the actions of these characters, how they talked, and that hooked me enough. I mean, forget the fact that it has a great twist, and you know, it is very well conceived, the plot's conceived, but I love the characters, and yeah, I could empathize with them. So that's my favorite book. In what I hope will be my favorite book, and it's certainly my favorite series right now, talking about something slightly different, but I'm watching a great series at the moment on Netflix called The Last Kingdom, and absolutely superb. It's set in the dark ages in England when the Danes were vying for control of Wessex and Mercia, so they're fighting the Saxons, and just an incredible Netflix well-produced series. So I've gone straight out and I've gone and bought the book, which is fast becoming also one of my favorite books, The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell. So I would say that may well trump Gone Girl, but it might be because I love Viking-y, Saxony, blood and gore, axe coming down on the top of your head, and I think so that could trump it. But yeah, okay. Gone Girl.
The Last Kingdom, I believe the very first book is called The Last Kingdom, isn't it?
The very first book is Last Kingdom. Yes.
Okay, I have that book in my collection. I have got to read that.
Do you really?
Yeah, I have read that he is a master at writing believable battle scenes, that violence, but in a subtle way, a believable way. So that's I was drawn to read him. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay, and another question for me is, this is actually going away from books altogether, but okay. You say you haven't liked any. You don't like a lot of the later horror films. What are some of the older ones that you do enjoy?
Oh, okay. The older ones that I do enjoy. It's not so old, but The Thing, because again, it's the classics. It's the classics, and hey, they're classics for a reason. They're classics for a reason. Okay, so I have no problem listing The Exorcist. I love that film, and maybe because I loved it and it affected me, and maybe I loved it because it affected me so much. I was very young when it came out. I was very young and probably too young to watch it. So right. the special effects were, to a young boy, totally believable. And as a horror writer, I go to a dark place in my writing when I write, but I'm also scared of things. I mean, I don't like being in a pitch black room. I am scared of the unknown, and for me, The Exorcist and a force or entity beyond our comprehension, that freaked me out. So yeah, The Exorcist was one. Damian, obviously my name was great, so I enjoyed that as much for the music and the score. The score of Damian was chilling in itself. I think it won an Oscar. Oh my God! I mean, absolutely brilliant. So that one, The Thing, all of the Alien books, although all of the Alien films, though Alien, it came out groundbreaking,
yes,
beautifully made, beautiful in its simplicity. As the series progressed, I feel they lost a little bit of something, but for me, that was the epitome of how to make, for me personally, a great horror / sci-fi creature movie. So those are the three big ones, and probably they might be on the hit list of everyone who's watched horror movies, but they are mine. Yeah, they are mine.
Yeah, I love. I would say the three that are kind of tied for my favorites are Alien, which you talked about, The Thing,
yes,
The Thing, which you also talked about, and The Witch, which is actually which came out just a few years ago.
I was going to say, yeah, that I think, yes, I haven't seen it, but I think on Twitter I have seen some posters up about it. So yes, the Witch, and yeah,
it is an amazing piece of cinema, but it is very, very slow burn. But then again, Alien was very slow burn.
It's what made the film great. That ramping up of the ramping up of tension. Absolutely. Yeah, sorry, Sally, my wife just corrected me. I said Damien. I must have Damien on The Omen. Sorry, The Omen. It's late. It's 1 o'clock. It's 1 o'clock in Spain at the moment. So that's probably why.
There is a movie called Damien. It's The Omen 2, actually.
Yes, The Omen 2, of course. Yes, of course. So we were talking about The Thing. We were talking about Alien. We were talking about The Witch. Yes, The Witch. So yes, and that's and where is that? Was that a movie in the cinemas, or was
it was?
It had a pretty big release.
Okay.
It's like you said, it's very slow burn, but it builds the dread from scene one.
Yeah, it's in colonial America.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, and just talk about. I mean, that's one of the movies that we go to for atmosphere. It's just gorgeous, just a beautiful, dark movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's on the watch list. I will get it from wherever it may be. Is it out on DVD by now, or
it is?
It's gone on DVD. Okay, great.
The DVD and Blu-ray are actually really cheap. I think I bought ours for $5.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes. Great. That's going to be one to watch, and on a sweltry hot Spanish night. That will be a great film to see.
Yeah, definitely will.
Have you asked all your questions?
I have. Have you? So do you want to say anything or ask anything?
Well, where can we find you? Like your social media and all that.
Yeah, I have a website which I started. So it's Damian Dawes, just Damian.Dawes.com. So it's really easy to find. I have a Twitter account, Damian Dawes 1. So I can drop some links on that. And just to reiterate, I've purposely made my books as cheap as I possibly can to try and get them out to as many readers as possible. So if you're interested, then that'd be great. Go and buy a book for 99 cents and have hopefully a really good read and enjoy it. And leave a review, whatever that review may be. I'm here to learn and hopefully improve as a writer. So that'd be great.
They are not novellas. These are full-size novels. So for 99 cents, you're getting a full-size novel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. The trilogy is 1,000 pages all in all. So 1,000 pages for under $3. So I think it's a competitive world out there, as I'm sure Nikki knows, and every other author out there. It's a hell of a lot of people writing right now. So I was trying to be competitive and trying to be seen in a very crowded. I'm still a very small fish in a very big ocean, but I'd like to be a little bit bigger. Not a minnow. I could like to be a tad bigger than a minnow. I thought to price competitively. And what do I want to say? Thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure. And first interview has been far more enjoyable than I could have hoped. So thank you very much for
Yeah,
the pleasure.
this was a great interview. This
Yes,
went
it was.
really, really well. And we appreciate you stopping by. This has been it's been a pleasure. It really has.
That's great. Well, I hope we'll speak again.
Yes. As a matter of fact, when we have our second channel, if you ever want to come on and discuss a horror film with us that you love,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd be really, really pleased to do that. And certainly, hopefully, my career as a horror writer will continue to flourish, and I'll be alongside you guys as well. So yeah. Yeah. I'll visit as often as I possibly can. That'd be really great.
You're more than welcome, Sally. It was nice to meet you.
Yeah, Sally. Yeah, thank you. I'm going to give last thing I have to do, because I have to. I'm in the same bed as Sally tonight. Little dog in the middle. Sally, thank you very much as well. Sally is a professional editor, and this book, the trilogy, is completely self-published, but there were obviously other people involved in it, and Sally was one of the absolute key people involved in it, and she did all the editing, and really kept me on the straight and narrow.
She did an amazing job. It was very well edited. Yeah.
I have 2 English degrees, Sally. I didn't find any mistakes.
Okay.
I'm impressed.
There you go. So yeah, Sally, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone who's joined us tonight as well, and for all the comments. Nikki, thank you. I can see you're a humorous person as well as a great horror writer. So yeah, nice to meet you, and everyone else who's come on board. It's been really great.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening. Go get some sleep.
Yeah, that's fine. Hey, look, I have this much red wine left. That's going down the hatch. So cheers. All the very best to you both.
Thank you.
And you as well.
You as well. Good night.
Pleasure. Good night to you.